بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest today, Professor Abdelmajid Abidi, an esteemed academic and translation expert. Professor Abdelmajid has made significant contributions to the field of contrastive linguistics and translation. In 1992, Professor Abdelmajid got his PhD in contrastive linguistics and translation from Salford University in the UK. Since then, he has embarked on a distinguished academic career spanning from Tunisia in the west to the Gulf and the east. One notable achievement of Professor Abdelmajid is the establishment of the first MA in translation program in Saudi Arabia at Amman-time University. His skills and dedication to academic excellence are evident through his previous roles as the head of the Department of the English Language and Translation, Dean of the College of Arts and Education, and also acting Chancellor at Ittihad University in United Arab Emirates. Since joining Imam University in 12-11, Professor Abdelmajid has taken on leadership positions such as leading the PhD in Translation Committee, the Holy Mosque Friday Khutbah Translation Team. These are some of the committees that he headed. He has also supervised numerous master theses in translation and applied linguistics. And he has successfully defended around 30 PhD dissertations in the fields of translation, applied and theoretical linguistics. Currently, he is supervising 3 PhD students in translation, 2 of whom are studying at Leeds University. In addition to his supervision and academic achievement, Professor Abdelmajid has authored 7 works in translation and applied linguistics. And he has reviewed several others, showcasing his expertise in the field. Today, we have the privilege of attending Professor Abdelmajid's lecture titled Translation, the 5 Trios. Please join me in welcoming this distinguished scholar whose wealth of knowledge and experience will undoubtedly shed light on this intriguing topic. Now, Professor Abdelmajid, the floor is yours. You can start your topic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Awad. Greeting my colleagues, wherever you are in Jordan or wherever you are. Eid Mubarak, inshallah, although this is the last Eid day in our Islamic calendar. My talk will be brief, just basic knowledge about translation, especially there are certain ideas or certain issues that we have to know about translation, which I call the 5 trios. The 5 trios of translation. We'll begin. Doctora, slide number 2, please. Doctora Dina.
Slide number 2. We don't see anything anyway.
Slide number 2, please. I thought Dr. Dina took control of...
Well, the mic is off, Dr. Dina. The mic is off. Would you turn it on?
Okay. I don't have the presentation with me. I'm sorry. You have to share screen your presentation once again.
Share screen?
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Share screen. There it is.
There you go.
All right.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see it, so we can
but,
go on.
Still in slide 1.
Yes, you can move on with the... You can move on.
But on my screen, I see only slide 1.
Yes, you can move on. You can move on with the next slide, whether you press enter or whatever you want.
I pressed enter, and nothing happened.
There are some arrows at the bottom. You can control with the arrows.
Even with the arrows, doesn't work.
Then you got to share your you need to send your stuff to the Dr. Dina or to me.
Okay.
You can send it to me.
Okay.
And I'll...
Okay. Okay, I'll send it to you via WhatsApp.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 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 How can I reduce this? Okay. Sent.
Okay.
Got it, Dr. Dina? Got it?
Yes, I do have it.
Okay.
Just 1 minute and I will be able to share it.
Okay, احتياطا, I'll send another one to Dr. Awad. Okay. Okay. I sent you a copy, Dr. Awad?
Yeah, I got it. You got it.
Okay.
Where are we, Dr. Dina?
Just a few more seconds.
No problem, a second.
I can share if you want.
Okay, if you can share it, then
Okay, just a
because it's taking longer than it should with me.
yeah. Stop sharing. Give me the capacity to.
Here you go.
Would you allow me to share? Okay, just a minute. You can see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so I'll go to slide number 2. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is okay. So we said normally the title of the talk is Translation the 5 Trios, but there is a talk prologue, if like. Here there are certain things we need to remember or we take into consideration when we listen to a talk about translation or when we write an article about translation. This is just to copy Shakespeare's, if like, adage. It's to translate or not to translate. Dr. Awad? Number 3. Yeah. Again, here, meaning is central to translation. You know, the question of translating is really something which is of weight to translators. And what is, again, of weight to translators is the meaning, because normally when we translate, we are supposed to, if like, transfer meaning from one language to another. So if like, again, to mean or not to mean here, that is the question, in view of the fact that if like languages differ and languages belong to different cultures, and different cultures perceive, if like, things or perceive the world in a different way. And is this, if like, sorry, is this if like, the question of translating is easy. The question of transferring meaning from one language to another is really something of consideration for translators. These are, if like, things to keep in mind. Move forward, please, Dr. Awad. Here, again, to remember these things again, which have been, if like, going on through the beginning of translation, through, if like, the beginning of human contact with each other. There are certain questions about translation. Is it possible? Is it not possible? And we have to know that normally translation began like as a literary type of practice, because people started translating from the early ages, like here of human history, translating especially pieces of literature or again sacred books. You see, remember the first if like maybe the first piece of translation that raised a problem, like, was the poem by Dante, the Italian, or narrative poem by Dante, which is normally the Divine Comedy, La Divina Commedia, which has been translated first into French. And the Italians were not really happy with the translation, and they like came up with this adage, this maxim, if like this, قول مأثور, traditori traditori. That is, the translator is a traitor. Once they read, if like, the comedy, the Divine Comedy in French, they thought that this really distorted completely the image of the Italian poem, La Divina Commedia. And they said traditori, which is normally the translator is a traitor. I remember one of Tunisian professors of Arabic and translation French, Arabic French, rahimahullah, Dr. Saleh Al-Garmadi, he said, like copying this Italian adage, he said, الترجمان خائن خوان. He tried to keep this alliterative, if like, type of pronunciation, which traditori, almost the same pronunciation. So الترجمان خائن خوان, and it has some sort of rhyming or something like this. Again, the French, they say, of course, traduire, c'est trahir. It's the same thing. To translate is to be unfaithful, if like, is to commit treason. And then later on, of course, in the 1950s, Georges Mouna, the French, also wrote a good article which was republished in 1994 called Les Belles Infidèles, which is normally the unfaithful or adulterous beauties, or the beautiful infidels. Although the beautiful infidels, I don't see it as an accurate translation, because infidel in English is not the same as infidèle in French. Infidel is normally kafir in English, but in French, yani unfaithful. So it's not really, although some people looked at this piece of work by George Muna as the beautiful infidels. Actually, he wrote it in defense of George Muna wrote Les Belles Infidèles in defense. He said it normally in French, une défense et illustration de l'art de traduire. It's a defense and illustration of the art of translating. He was defending the translations into other languages, which normally they stick to the norms of the target language. In order to be beautiful, the translations have to stick to the rules and the linguistic commodities, of the target language, in order to, because you cannot translate literature in the same way you translate an informative text or a general text or a normal text, ordinary text. It has, of course, literal translation has its own laws, so to speak. Okay, the following slide, Dr. Awad. Okay, now, the talk again here is in order to introduce translation to my colleagues who are normally translators, teachers of translation, or teachers of English as a foreign language, a teaching of English literature. I wanted it to be brief. My talk wanted it to be brief and sophisticated. That's why I titled it the 5 trios or the 5 triads of translation, which are normally the frame. I'm going to talk about the frame of translation, not really the core. I'm not going to get deep into the core, but the frame, of translation. Okay, the following slide, Dr. Awad. So trio number 1, types of translation. Normally, these are things that we have to know, and normally we have to teach to our students of translation. There are certain things, main things that they have to know. The first trio, or the first element of this first trio, is written translation. Of course, it has many types. We are not going to go, because this talk is not supposed to be about details concerning written translation, but in general, translation as a generic term. It's we are looking at it as a generic term. So many subtypes, but of course, written translation is language-based. It is verbal. It uses verbal signs, if you like. This is written translation. The second type of translation is oral translation. Oral translation, of course, called interpreting or interpretation, depending, of course, on the English, the kind of English, or the variety of English. The Britishers, they call it interpreting. The Americans call it interpretation. I always draw the attention of my students to this so that they won't be confused when they read books about translation theory. Sometimes they find interpreting, sometimes they find interpretation. They may get confused. So I tell them that, of course, you have to be aware that we have 2 main varieties of English. Basically, the British variety and the American variety. And of course, they have differences at the 4 levels of language: spelling, pronunciation, meaning, and even grammar. But this is, again, not the subject of our talk. So if interpreting or interpretation. Of course, it has many subtypes. We are not going to go into detail about this. And here, language-based, of course, again, verbal. But of course, here, the written sign, and here, the spoken sign, or the oral sign. The third type Some call it semiotic translation, some call it intersemiotic translation, where normally the focus is on the signs. Traffic lights could be like a kind of, we need semiotic translation because we are translating not words, we are translating signs. Sometimes you see, especially lights, we see red light, that is, we translate it as stop, green, go. Orange, be careful, depending on the country. They have to stop in certain countries. In other countries, watch out, but you can move, you can go on, you see. And here we can, although normally sign language interpreting has become part of oral translation of interpreting, but normally it goes under semiotic translation because here we are using signs, we are not using words. So here, of course, it could be verbal into non-verbal, a sign language from one sign language to maybe written or spoken. You see, so we can have the combination of language plus sign based, if like, type of translation. So these are like the main types of translation, which are normally written, oral, and semiotic. We move on, Dr. Awad. Move on again, because we don't need to go into, again, please, again, yeah, here. So that's, if like the first trio is of like the types of translation, because we have oral, we have written, we have oral, we have signed, if like here, which is, it can be linguistic and it can be signed. But the second trio, of course, basic methods. And I put here between parentheses strategies, because in many books of translation, we may find strategies instead of methods. But normally the first, if like the first people who talk about this really were the Canadians, especially Vinet and Darbalnet, and they call it les méthodes de traduction. Les procédures, we'll come to that in the third trio, but les méthodes, normally known in English as methods, but some writers or some theoreticians about translation, sometimes they confuse strategies and procedures. We'll come to that later on very briefly. But normally some people call it methods, some people call it strategies, okay? These normally, these methods, they take place at the macro level of language, at the macro level of language, or the macro-linguistic level, if like, the text, not the micro. We'll come to it later on in the third trio. Word-for-word translation, normally this is peculiar to, doesn't fit translation very often, especially when it comes to translating from any European language into Arabic, because we use normally, we have different directions. In Arabic, we move from left to right. In the European languages, we move from left to right, the opposite way. In other Asian languages, from top down, perhaps. You see, like Japanese. So, if like here, this does not really fit translation, but it fits those contrastive linguists who would like to know how, or the logic or the genius of languages. They sometimes juxtapose of like texts in different languages in order to know how they function. The word order, like the place of certain words, grammatical words within the sentence, etc. Very often it does not fit, especially when it comes to translating into Arabic. Maybe, for instance, English, French, German, English, since normally English is rather the sister or the daughter of German, very close to each other. So sometimes word for word works, especially for certain sentences and short sentences. But normally it doesn't fit translation. The second method, literal translation. Literal translation, you read the text, of course, but you translate it taking into consideration the rules of the target language. For a particular grammatical rule in the source language, it has its equivalent in the target language. This is normally what is literal. I'll give an example later on, and things will become clearer. as to what I mean hereby. Free translation. Sometimes literal translation doesn't fit, and we'll see an example. So we resort to free translation. Free translation, normally in literal translation, we try our best to keep both form and content. المبنى والمعنى. But free translation, نضحي بالمبنى. Sometimes if the languages are different, especially if we have with proverbs and certain cultural laden things, sometimes we have to sacrifice the form, but we have to keep the content. يعني نضحي بالمبنى ونبقي على المعنى، لأنه المعنى, that's why to mean or not to mean. المعنى هو أهم شيء عادة بالنسبة للترجمة. So meaning is central. Free translation. Move Dr. Awad, and we'll give an example very briefly, which I always give it to my students now for about 40 years now, because it's a very good example. It represents very well these three basic methods. Of course, when I say three methods, they are basic. They are not the only methods, by the way. Just if I'm going to get questions later on, I may say, but we don't have only three methods. Of course, we don't have only three, but the three basic methods are the ones I mentioned. There are many other, of course, at least up to 7 or something methods, but the three basic ones are the ones we just mentioned. Now, if we use this English idiom, like it's raining cats and dogs, if we practice word-for-word translation on it, of course, word-for-word translation, we look at the word without regarding the following words within the sentence, just at the word itself. Here, it, if I look at it, what does it give me in Arabic? It could be huwa, it could be here, because we don't know. It's inanimate, يعني غير عاقل كما نقول في العربية، ولكن يمكن يكون هو، يمكن يكون هي، لأنه عندنا التأنيث والتذكير في العربية. إن كان هو فهو يكون it's. But of course, this is a contracted form. We don't have a contracted form in Arabic, by the way. هو يكون أو هي تكون, depending on whether it is a he or a she. Raining, we look at it as a word again. ممطر. ممطر. It's a present participle. So ممطر أو ممطرة, depending on the, like whether we are talking about he or a she for it. Then cats. We don't functionalize them, if I may say so. يعني لا نعربها هذه الكلمات لأن كما هي هكذا بدون أي إعراب، ليست لها وظيفة هذه الكلمات. cats قطة وكلاب. Okay. So عندما نقول هو يكون ممطر قطة وكلاب، بطبيعة الحال we cannot use the grammar here, because we have translated the word separately, each word separately. You see, so it has no meaning whatsoever in Arabic. So it doesn't really fit translation word for word when it comes especially into Arabic, from any other language into Arabic. If we go to literal translation, where we normally have to give the equivalent grammatical and structure and sentence structure, etc., in the target language. ممكن أن نترجم it's raining cats and dogs literally into Arabic. تمطر قطة وكلابا. The Arabic sentence is perfect, is acceptable grammatically. It's grammatical. You see? تمطر قطة وكلابا لا غبار عليها من الناحية النحوية والتركيبية. ولكن, so grammatically it is accepted, but it has no meaning. Semantically, no. It's not accepted semantically because Arabs don't use this. You see, it is a correct sentence, but it's meaningless because, again, to mean or not to mean, because translation deals with the transfer of meaning. You see, here we didn't transfer meaning. Look here, we transferred the form. We centered ourselves on the form, not on the content. So, تمطر قطة وكلابا, perfect as an Arabic sentence, but it is meaningless. Now, free translation, which is normally we disregard the form or we sacrifice it, if you like, because we cannot do, since we keep قطة وكلاب, it has no meaning, so therefore we have to sacrifice this form and go for the meaning. You see? عادة العرب قديما يقولون تمطر من أفواه القرب، والقرب بطبيعة الحال هي جمع قربة، والقربة كانت عادة من جلد الماعز، وكان العرب بدو رحل وكانت أوانيهم غير قابلة للكسر، فعادة مستخدمة من جلود الأنعام، وعادة الماعز على ما أذكر عندنا في تونس زمان، يعني لأن جلد الماعز عنده خاصية أن يبقي على الماء بارد. ولكن القربة بتتحال فمها يعني على حسب رقبة العنزة التي استخدمنا جلدها. فعادة العرب كناية عن غزارة المطر يقولون تمطر من أفواه القرب، لأننا نصب الماء من القربة في الإناء حتى نشرب، فيستخدمون هذه الطريقة لأنها مأخوذة من الثقافة العربية هكذا. لكن الإنجليز يحبون القطط والكلاب. وأذكر بالمناسبة عام أني ذهبت إلى بريطانيا لأول مرة أدرس فرنسي عام 1979-80 في بريطانيا. يعني كانت عندهم في ذلك الوقت يعني يحبون الكلاب جدا، وكانت عندهم يعني عدد كبير من الكلاب، أعتقد في ذلك الوقت 6 ملايين كلب وكلبة، يعني كلب ابن كلب 6 ملايين تقريبا عندهم هناك. وأذكر أنه مدير المدرسة الذي استقبلني أدخلني إلى بيته، جلست في قاعة الجلوس وجاء كلب نسيت شابرد، يعني ضخم مثل العجل، جاءني وجلس في حجري. يا الله قطع نفسي. فقلت لي المدير ويليام كان اسمه، قلت له مستر ويليام can you take it away please؟ قال لي سوري ماجيد، كان يقول لي ماجيد في ذلك الوقت، يعتبر اسمي طويل يعني يصعب عليهم، فقال لي ماجيد he take him not it. طيب قلت له take him بس خلصني منه بس، يعني انه كان ثقيل ما شاء الله. anyway فكان عندهم الكلاب يعني ويحبون الكلاب. فأنا فهمت من ذلك الوقت أول يعني احتكاك لي بالثقافة البريطانية، عرفت أنهم يحبون الكلاب ويعزونهم لدرجة أنه يسمون الكلب الذكر هي والأنثى شي. anyway فيعني وبالتالي العرب لا يستخدمون القطط والكلاب كناية عن الغزارة في المطر، بإنما يستخدمون القرب. ولكن هي في الحقيقة هذه الترجمة هي الترجمة التي تقبل من ناحية قواعد الترجمة، لأنه عندنا تركيب ثقافي. we have a cultural element within this English sentence. We need to translate it with an equivalent cultural element in Arabic or in French. مثلا الفرنسيين يستخدمون الحبال كناية عن غزارة المطر، يقولون il pleut des cordes، يعني تمطر حبالا. هكذا الفرنسيون يستخدمون الحبال، لأنه الحبل عادة وكانوا يستخدمونه خاصة في السفن وفي عدة أشياء، وهو غليظ نوعا ما، فكناية عن غزارة المطر يعني تنزل وكأن حبال من السماء. بطبيعة الحال كل ثقافة لها طريقة. ولكن لو أننا ترجمناها مثلا بينهمر المطر مدرارا، أو تمطر بغزارة، أو تمطر حوبة، فهذه ترجمة، ولكن يعني لم تأخذ بعين الاعتبار الجانب الثقافي في النص في الجملة أو في العبارة الإنجليزية. Anyway, but this is another matter, so that we move on. Let's move on, please, Dr. Awad. Now, the third trio, like trio 3. We talked about basic methods or strategies. Here we talk about basic procedures or techniques. Again, because the first Vinet and Darbanet, the Canadians, when they wrote their book, Stylistique comparée du français et de l'anglais, it has been translated in 1995 into English. They call it comparative linguistics, comparative stylistics between English and French. Of course, they called the first, like the methods, they call it méthode, and the procedures, they called them procédure. Okay, technique. Sometimes we find technique in certain books. Technique, it has to do with the micro level of language, if like. Methods at the macro level of the whole text. But normally procedures, there are more, of course, than 3 procedures, but these are the basic ones, and I'll explain why they are the basic ones. Because every language, whenever, especially we Arabs, but now we are like left aback compared to other civilizations, scientifically, technically, technologically, etc. يعني we find a problem when we when we find a new invention concerning, for instance, telecommunication, aviation, etc., we find a lot of problems. And normally we'll see how to translate certain terms, certain scientific or technical terms, if I like, especially we Arabs, that we are left back as far as civilization, if like, quote unquote, is concerned. Here, micro level, normally it's from the word, or we can say syllable, or a suffix, or a affix rather, because an affix is either a suffix, an infix, or a prefix. Okay, so micro level, it could be an affix until the sentence. This is like the procedure. This is a procedure. We apply a procedure. But for the whole text, we apply a method. Of course, again.
I'm sorry, Abdelmajid, for interrupting. Is it possible to finish within like 15 minutes, because you got more than 20 slides now?
Okay, inshallah. No, but I will overlook many of them. Inshallah. Okay, inshallah, in 15 minutes, I'll finish, bi'idhnillah. Okay, so these like basic procedures. Transference, it's also called borrowing or calque or loan translation, transliteration sometimes, transcription. At a particular time, I think in the Levant area of the Arabs, يعني في الشام, سموا النقحرة, يعني وهي blending from النقل الحرفي, if like. While transference في الحقيقة is not نقل حرفي, but rather it's نقل صوتي, not نقل حرفي. We'll come to that when I give in the following slide, when we give the example. So transference, normally we keep the word, the foreign word, the source language word as it is, but we write it in the target language alphabet, you see. Number two, this is the basic one. Number two, naturalization. If like naturalization, التوطين, if like التوطين ممكن يصير بالعربي. لكن أفضل يعني شخصيا ودائما كنت أفضل Arabicization, وليس Arabization, by the way. In many books, sometimes you find Arabization, but there is a difference between Arabicization and Arabization. Arabicization from Arabic, because the rule, the morphological rule in English says that a noun, we add eyes to it, we turn it into a verb. So Arabic, اللي هي اللغة, Arabicize يعني نجعله يخضع اللغة العربية, إذن Arabicization وليس Arabization. لأن Arabization التعريب له معنيان في عالمنا العربي. التعريب يعني نقل شيء من لغة أخرى للغة العربية، والتعريب هو جعل الشيء عربي ينتمي إلى الثقافة العربية. هذا نقطة أخرى. طيب, the third basic procedure is equivalent or equivalence. And I'll give you, let's move forward very quickly, Dr. Awad, following slides, so that we give an example again to illustrate this. So to illustrate this trio, if like, let's use the word television and computer. Number one, transference, if like. تلفزيون, this is transference. يعني ولو في الحقيقة هو transference وكأنه في العالم العربي وكأنه من الفرنسية تلفزيون وليس television in English. لأنه في الفرنسيون يقول تلفزيون. وأعتقد أنه دخلت إلى مصر عبر نابليون من زمان، مش نابليون بعدين، يعني هي في منتصف القرن التاسع عشر دخلت أعتقد على مصر عبر الفرنسية ونقلوها هم إلى بقية العالم العربي، فجاء التلفزيون. لكن في الحقيقة التلفزيون is not a transference from English television. It's rather a transference as I see it from French télévision. Computer. Okay? يعني we leave the word as it is. يعني عندما نجد أنفسنا نحن العرب أمام مصطلحات جديدة لا نعرفها، ونحن وللأسف تأخرنا مقارنة بالبقية العالم، تأخرنا تكنولوجيا وصناعيا وكذا. فعادة هكذا نفعل أول ما نفعله. لكن وقعت محاولة. نحن حاولنا مثلا في شمال أفريقيا، في تونس وفي شمال أفريقيا، أنه تلفزيون من الفرنسية نقول تلفزة. naturalization نبقي على بعض الأصوات الرئيسية في الكلمة الأعجمية ونخضعها إلى ننطقها بشكل عربي يسهل علينا اشتقاقها، يعني نستطيع أن نشتق منها كلمات. مثلا تلفزة نستطيع أن نقول تلفز the verb الفعل، تلفز يتلفز، برنامج متلفز، يعني this is so we have Arabicized it. It's not an Arabic word، يعني هي معرب وليس بطبيعة الحال الدخيل عندما تأتي كلمة كاملة من لغة أخرى اللغة العربية. أما المعرب فهي كلمة أعجمية أصبغناها بالطابع العربي حتى نشتق منها ويعني كلمات أخرى، فيسمى المعرب. تلفزة نحن نقول، ممكن نجمعها تلفزات كذلك. في الشرق بدأنا نسمع تلفاز، ولكن للأسف على ما أعتقد أنه الغالب لا يزال عندنا في عالمنا العربي هو التلفزيون. هذا بالنسبة للتلفزيون. بالنسبة للكمبيوتر هناك محاولة في مجمع، على ما أعتقد المجمع اللغوي في الشام في سوريا أظن، اقترحوا كذلك تعريبا، نوع من التعريب، كابتر، قالوا نسميه كمبيوتر، نأخذ الأصوات الأساسية كابتر، نستطيع أن نقول كابتر يكبتر مثلا، برنامج مكبتر، يعني، ولكن لم تصمد هذه، يعني لم يختارها العرب. وكذلك المرنات بالنسبة هذه الحالة الثالثة هي equivalent. المرنات يعني كلمة عربية لا علاقة لها بالتلفزيون، يعني مشتقة من رانا يرلو في العربية، ولكن وأظن ظهرت في الأردن على ما أعتقد يمكن يصلحني أو يصححني الزملاء من الأردن. الرائي كذلك لست أدري في أي بلد عربي في الشرق، يعني الشاشة الصغيرة في مصر نذكر، ولكن لم تصمد لهذه كلها، لم تصمد يعني. والآن بين تلفزيون وتلفاز يعني. أما الكمبيوتر انتقل من procedure 1 straight، قفز على second procedure، تجاوزها وقفز إلى الثالثة، الإجراء الثالث، وهو equivalent، المقابل أو المكافأ العربي. فنجد حاسب آلي أو حاسوب، حاسوب، حواسيب، هذا equivalent، لأنه الكلمة عربية صرفة مأخوذة من جذع عربي لابتكار كلمة عربية جديدة. anyway نتجاوز يعني بعض، لأنه الكالك كذلك اللي هو transference، يعني هناك أشياء أخرى. الكالك can be not only words, it can be phrases. مثلا القبة الحديدية، القبة الحديدية هي the iron dome، يعني هذا calc from English into Arabic. or to fish in troubled waters، هذه العبارة تستخدم في الصحافة العربية في أوقات كثيرة. to fish in troubled waters يعني يصطادوا في الماء العكر. كذلك this is calc، يعني it's not only words can be transferred from one language to another, but also phrases. Into English we find the word garage. مثلا chambre at a particular time, but chamber, it changed, of course. And coup d'état, coup d'état, which is taken from French. So يعني transference or calc, if like, it can be one word, it can be a phrase also. So that, because we are pressed with time, let's move on. Dr. Awad, following, please. Again, okay. 3 or 4 translation steps. Of course, when we translate, of course, when we teach translation to our students, we tell them that they have to follow certain steps in order to translate, because we cannot just translate haphazardly, just like that. There are certain steps that we have to follow in order to translate properly, or to get an acceptable result, at the end, or an acceptable product. Number 1, reading. Of course, reading requires reading skills and source language reading skills. Okay, this is if we are talking about written translation. I'm trying to be quick now. Listening, if we are talking about oral translation or interpreting, listening skills, and still the source language listening skills. Without having the skills of listening, how to pronounce, how to the intonation, etc., we won't be able to understand, because all these skills lead us to an important, non-important, objective in translation is comprehension. You see, we need to comprehend. If we read properly, following the punctuation marks, etc., we will comprehend the text. Again, if we are interpreting, if we listen properly, we know the phonetics of the language, the phonology of the language, all the system, will be able to comprehend also the speech and therefore interpret it properly. Step number 2, so we read before we translate. Step number 2, we start translating. Well, of course, there are other sub-steps, if you like, but I'm talking about the overall thing. Translating or interpreting, depending on whether it is written or oral translation. Here, the skills, the translating skills, or rather here, the skill we need for translating is the writing skill. And it is target language writing skill. حتى نترجم من لغة إلى أخرى، عندنا مهارات القراءة للغة الأولى، مهارات الكتابة للغة الثانية. مهارات الكتابة هي التي تمكننا من ترجمة نص يعني مقبول بقواعد اللغة التي نترجم إليه. نتكلم نفس الشيء، نسمع listening skills, but speaking target language skills. You see, نفس الشيء لابد أن نكون على دراية بقواعد نطق وكذا الكلمة التي نترجم شفاهة إليها من لغة أخرى. And here, the objective is composition. Here, step number 1, comprehension is the objective. Step number 2, composition is the objective, whether it is in writing or in speaking. Okay, whether it is written or spoken, this objective. Step number 3, again, we have to revise what we have written. We may have forgotten a word or a sentence, especially if we are translating the text. We may have skipped a line or something. So we need to review it. You see, read it alone separately from the source text. And we see whether it reads natural or not. We have to check whether it is complete. You may have missed something out. Accurate, because certain words, polysemy is a problem for translators. Polysemy, words which have different meanings, which are open to many meanings. We have to be careful because meanings change from one area to another, you see. And it reads natural. لابد عندما نقرأها وكأنها عربية. Of course, into Arabic very often we add these حروف العطف وأدوات الربط هذه نحتاجها لأنه في الإنجليزية very often these connectors are rather implicit very often in English, but in Arabic they have to be explicit يعني ظاهرة على عكس اللغة الإنجليزية. Okay, we move on because we are in a hurry, Dr. Awad. Okay, the last trio. Translation often involves 3 necessary and unavoidable actions. يعني without upsetting, of course, the source language meaning. 3 actions, which are normally addition, omission, and change. But addition not to the target language meaning. You see, because if we add anything to the target language meaning, this would be a translation error. You see, not an action in translation that is necessary. It is a translation error. It's over translation, which I call normally in Arabic I call it personally I call it الإفراط وسنرى التفريط فيما بعدها. You see, الإفراط والتفريط لابد أن نتجنبه. You see, because it's over translation. لكن addition sometimes required by the target language. What is expressed in one language by one word, a target language may need 2 or 3 words to express it. This is what we call addition here in translation, which is unnecessary and unavoidable due to the language differences. Okay, but if we add things, I'll give an example very quickly later on. If we add this, add something which is not in the source text, that would be over translation. يعني إفراط في الترجمة, and this is a translation error. Omission, but not from the target language. Sometimes, again, نفس الشيء. يعني what English, for instance, sometimes needs 3 words to or 4 words to express it. Maybe Arabic and only 2 words. This is omitted, but it's not omission from the meaning of the target text of the source text, but it is the genius of the target language, which normally needs fewer words. You see, if we omit actually and literally from the source language, that's an error, and it is under translation, which I call in Arabic التفريط. يعني لا ينبغي أن نفرط أو يعني لا يكون عندنا إفراط أو تفريط في الترجمة. The third element of this trio, fifth trio, is change. We change sometimes. We change because what a language expresses in a particular way, another language expresses in a different way, but it's the same meaning. This is a change, but of course not of the TT form, but not of the TT meaning. يعني we change the form, like we did, for instance, تمطر من أفواه القرب. We changed the form, but we didn't change the meaning. You see, if we change the meaning, this would be the grossest error in translation, which is mistranslation. You see? Okay, keep in mind here شمس العرب تسطع الغرب. هذا مثال مثلا حيث يعني المترجمون حرفوا في الحقيقة هذا الكتاب الإنجليزي الألماني لزيغريد هونكا، وترجم أظن مترجم لبناني ومترجم مصري، وكان في أوج الحركة الناصرية في العالم العربي. يعني فأضفوا على كتاب زيغريد هونكا هذه المستشرقة الألمانية التي تعاطفت وقت مقاطعة مع الإسلام والمسلمين والعرب، يعني ترجموه بكيفية تضفي إيديولوجيتهم هم هؤلاء المترجمين، يعني ترجمتهم العروبية نوعا ما. Let's move on, Dr. Awad, please.
Okay, can we wrap up the presentation, a few words and stuff, because we are approaching the time limit.
Okay, Doctor, yeah, I'm wrapping up.
Okay.
You see? Okay, here's an example, for instance, addition and expansion here. الباب مفتوح مثلا. 2 words in Arabic, but the door is open. 4 words in English. So this is not an addition if we translate it from Arabic into English, but this is English and this is Arabic. So this is accepted in translation. But omission here. The door is open. It's the other way around. The door is open into Arabic. الباب مفتوح. يعني is هذه لا نحتاجها في العربية، لأن مبتدأ وخبر لا نحتاج فعل، لأن هناك جمل عربية which they call normally verbless sentences in Arabic اللي هي المبتدأ والخبر لا نحتاج فعل. أوكي؟ لكن under translation look مثلا هذه الجملة cap bottle، يعني هذه في الرضعات في الحليب للأطفال وجدتها هذه cap bottle and shake well until powder fully dissolved. وجدت يعني رج الزجاجة أو الرضاعة حتى يذوب الحليب تماما، لا وجود الحليب هنا. لكن انظروا change مثلا training cats and dogs، يعني cats and dogs غيرناها من أفواه القرب، هذا change ولكن necessary change. The following, Dr. Awad, please. We are almost finished. Here is another example here. يعني زيغريد هونكا هذه. 2 translators, a Lebanese and Egyptian، واحد كل فاروق سعيد بيضون أظن اللبناني، وكمال الدسوقي. زيغريد هونكا كتابها هو ألز زونا أوبردم أبنلاند أنزغ أرابيشس إربا. هما ترجموه شمس العرب تسطع على الغرب. لا وجود لكلمة عرب هنا، الله وليس العرب. وهنا أنزر أرابيشس إربا، يعني في الحقيقة هي تراثنا العربي. تراثنا العربي يعني ترجمتها. ترجموها هم الفرعي، العنوان الفرعي، الحضارة العربية في أوروبا أو أثر الحضارة، يعني قومجوا العنوان صراحة. لست أدري، لم أدخل كثيرا في النص، ولكن المترجمين قومجا العنوان، يعني أضفى عليه يعني إيديولوجيتهما العربية أو العروبية. You see? Here I said what, يعني normally if like here it should be Shamsullah. If like the following slide, I think I gave my option. The following slide, thank you very much. Here under translation عندما أقول شمس الله على الغرب would be under literal translation would be under translation، لأنه إضافة الفعل يعني توافق المترجمان في إضافة الفعل تسطع. لا وجود للفعل في الألمانية، لا يحتاجونه. ولكن إضافة تسطع، شمس العربي تسطع أوكي، لكن العرب تحريف لله وليس العرب. لم تقل العرب، هي قالت الله. addition هنا تسطع addition ولكن ضرورية. So it's addition لكن محمودة، يعني إضافة محمودة وليس مذمومة. mistranslation، شمس العرب، العرب هي mistranslation، لأنه في الأصل الله ممكن نترجمها إسلام لو أننا فهمنا المعنى الآخر من وراء كلمة الله. شمس الإسلام، وفي الحقيقة هم الذين سطعوا على أوروبا، ليس العرب، هم المسلمون، وخاصة الحضارة العثمانية هم المسلمون وليس العرب في الحقيقة. في الأندلس نعم عرب، ولكن في الناحية الأخرى مسلمون. حتى في الأندلس لم يكن كلهم عرب، كانت يعني العلماء من أنحاء العالم الإسلامي. anyway، فالعرب هنا it's mistranslation لأنه تحريف للعنوان الأصلي. شمس الإسلام change أوكي، ممكن نقبلها لأنه بمعنى الله يعني إسلام. يا إما نبقي عليها كما هي، شمس الله تسطع على الغرب، أو شمس الإسلام تسطع على الغرب. ولكن ليس أثر الحضارة العربية على الحضارة الغربية، ليس صحيحا في الحقيقة. هذا هي قالت تراثنا العربي، يعني التراث الأوروبي العربي الذي أصله عربي. أنا رأيت في العنوان هذا بصراحة تحريف، ربما بسبب الإيديولوجية المترجمين. المفروض المترجم لابد أن يترك عليه أن يترك إيديولوجيته جانبا ويلتزم بالنص حتى لا ينحرف عن الأصل. يعني اللي بعدها دكتور، ظهر لي ما في شيء توقف هنا ممكن.
Okay.
خلاص دكتور.
Things got stopped. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdelmajid. Now we'll have time for questions and answers. And before we do this, we just would like to express our sincere gratitude to Professor Abdelmajid and for gracing us with his presence first and sharing his expertise through today's lecture. We're honored to have had the opportunity to learn from you, Dr. Abdelmajid, and gain insights into this fascinating topic. I'm sure you still have more than 15 slides to talk about, but maybe later on we can contact you about these slides. Thank you very much. Now the floor is open to our colleagues who would like to ask questions. If no one has a question, I got one. After them. If you want me to start with my question, Dr. Abdelmajid, or leave the floor.
Okay, go ahead. It's up to you, Dr.
Okay, you know, nowadays we have the AI thing coming on or emerging, which is the artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's amazing? By the way, within 1 year we got so many things about the artificial intelligence apps. One of them, or some of them, are translation. So, do you think that these will be related to the 5 trios somehow? Do they appreciate or take or consider the 5 trios in translation? Dr. Majid?
Well, artificial intelligence, we can when we say artificial intelligence, we think of it's like machine translation or machine-aided translation, يعني MAT, or CAT, computer-aided translation. I have, well, when I was there at Al-Qura University in Mecca, I wrote a booklet about the required skills and knowledge of the translator. And I dealt with the point of machine translation. Then I believe that the machine, no matter how sophisticated and advanced it is, it won't be able to replace the human translator. Now there is a progressive improvement in machine translation, really progressive, especially it has improved a lot, especially when it comes to scientific texts or perhaps informative types of texts. يعني the machine can excel here. But when it comes to certain other types of text, for instance, from my experience as the head of the Grand Holy Mosque team of translators, which went on for 8 years, but unfortunately stopped during Corona in the 1990s, I think the machine cannot really do anything about this due to certain specific Islamic terms and phrases and expressions when it comes to jurisprudence, for instance, and in certain hadiths, certain verses, where we find certain polysemic words which are open to many interpretations. I think the machine in this case here may not be able to do something unless because the machine, actually it's not the machine which is doing it. The human, it is the human mind behind the machine. Still the machine by itself cannot do anything. There is a human behind it who can who can control it, or who can improve it. But still there are certain things, certain differences between languages that the machine cannot cover. You see, especially polysemy. Sometimes you put in Google, for instance, translate a sentence, it gives you sometimes something very funny. Why? Because there are many meanings for the same word. مثلا, if I take the example, مثلا, the number 12 contains 6, 4, 3, and 2. Okay? If we translate it into Arabic, contain عادة المعنى الأولي لكلمة contain في العربية في الإنجليزية هو يحتوي. ولكن contain here, the context is mathematical. إذن contain هنا doesn't mean يحتوي إطلاقا. الرقم 12 يقبل القسمة على 6 و4 و3 و2. You see? وقس على ذلك many other examples. So the artificial intelligence has improved a lot when it comes to certain other things. But in translation, yes, in translation also, if we look at Google Translate about 20, 25 or 30 years ago, it's different from Google Translate now. It has improved, but still there are funny translations, if you like.
Thank you very much. And now, Dr. Jihad, I think he's got a question. He raised his hand.
Thank you very much, Professor Awad. Thank you very much, Professor Abdelmajid, for this very interesting talk on translation. Just want to share some ideas with you and with colleagues as well. When you were highlighting your 5 trails, you mentioned macro and micro.
Yeah.
So instead of relating them together, each one is under a different tree, when in fact these are strongly related, because macro, as you know, as colleagues know, this macro has come from text linguistics. Before text linguistics, when it was grammar linguistics or sentence grammar, it was micro, because we were interested in just things like cohesion, for instance, where we look at items, specific items in a sentence, and we don't go beyond the sentence. When we started going beyond the sentence, and the sentence here does not mean just a number of words, because text can be just 1 word or 2 words, and it's a text rather than a sentence. Yes.
Absolutely.
We started looking at macro. So I personally suggest that you find a window into where we can go from what you call method to procedure, because in fact these are the same thing, but these may be called anyway. I'm not changing your, I'm trying to change your terminology. You have worked on this for a while. But it's, for me, this is under a trio called level. Which level do you handle? Do you handle the micro level or the macro level? And this may be a way out of it, yes, because this will bring us back to the strong relationship between macro and micro, the way the relationship is really strong between sentence grammar and text linguistics or text.
Yes.
This is the first thing. The second thing of interest for me, and I liked, of course, your presentation, when you started talking about words that are borrowed from English or from other languages and were given new terms. You mentioned, of course, television. Television went well because, and computer went well. These were very successful, either when it's tilfaz or the one that doesn't go well is Rai, for instance. Rai, yes. But there's another word that was given life, but just for a while, and then passed away, which is fax and nasukh. Yes. Nasukh, nobody bought it, yes. It didn't sell well at all. And it disappeared. Though it was because it was produced by the academic, the Arabic academies. Yes. Yes, but you know, they are just human beings like us. They think they may succeed, they may not succeed. So sometimes, yes, this happens really. That is, these words, I mean, we need probably to study carefully. We semanticists and translators, we need probably to think of features which make a word, a loan word, or an Arabization or Arabicization of a word, which makes it pass and flourish, and which a certain feature may really kill it. Yes, I mean lots of things. For instance, let's think of even in our dialects. In Arabic, in Jordanian Arabic, we say bencher, uniform puncture. Yeah. In a tire, and bencher. And we can have the feminine, and banisher, and bencher. That is, we can have, and we can use it also metaphorically. فلان مبنشر يعني مش قادر يمشي مش قادر يطلع طلع مبنشر هو على الحديد مفلس. I mean, such a thing has not really received considerable studies or research. Why does this pass and flourish? And why does this perish and die? Yeah, there could be some features inherent in such words. The last thing, or the one before the last, you used free translation. And for me, free translation is idiomatic translation. Free, fine, but it's idiomatic. Idiomatic because you put the form aside completely, and even the content, yes, you keep the meaning of the content. Yes, like it's raining cats and dogs. And in Jordanian Arabic, we say, it's from God. This saying comes from God. Yes, that is.
This is Syrian, Doctor. Syrian.
Syrian.
هذه العبارة يعني من سوريا؟
لا، من العربي الأردني.
من الأردن.
كب من الرب. بتقول اطلع ما يصير كيف طلع بدون شمسية. كب من الرب. The last thing of interest for me is we use this common phrase. Machine cannot replace man, or man is necessary. And I look at it completely differently. I say, what happens in, you alluded to this, of course, so I have to give you the credit because you have alluded to this. I say it's a new human replacing an old human rather than a human replacing a machine. Yes, it's a new human, more knowledgeable human replacing a less knowledgeable, a less intelligent human. Yes, and so the problem resides with us. Once we change, artificial intelligence will also change. Thank you very much indeed for your patience, for listening to me and probably listening to me and to other colleagues, and responding if you think that you need to respond. I would be happy, of course, if you respond. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jihad, for these interesting points you have raised. Well, I'll just answer them briefly one by one. Number one, concerning macro and micro. Dr. Jihad, يعني when we teach translation to students, we need to divide to separate the micro from the macro, because as a preliminary course to students, or the first course given to students in translation at the university, very often we begin by sentences. So if we begin by sentences, we need to tell them, we need to focus on what we call procedures. في الحقيقة, it's not me who calls these procedures. Vinay and Darbane in 1958, these two Canadians, long ago, in their book, which is published, I said in 58, stylistique comparée du français et de l'anglais, يعني الأسلوبية المقارنة بين اللغة الإنجليزية والفرنسية. يعني both, يعني Vinay and Darbane, they put like major terms, and many others, like Peter Newmark, for instance, the defunct Peter Newmark, who copied from them, like he copied actually from the Canadian school in French, because he speaks quite a few languages, Peter Newmark. He copied from the Canadian school, and he copied from the German school because he spoke German also. These are terms, Doctor, we cannot, يعني, they are established terms, methods at the text level, like the macro level of language, and procedures at the micro level, from the from the affix, من اللاحقة إلى الجملة. Okay. وبالتالي ضروري أن نفصل. It's necessary to separate the micro from the macro in order to teach translation to students. So that's why they need to be separate in two separate trios, if like. This is for this micro. Of course, a word can be, as text linguists say, a word can be a text. Stop, for instance, that we find as a sign in a traffic sign, it is a text by itself. No smoking, 2 words, but it is a text also. So في الحقيقة we cannot really dissociate this from that, but for pedagogical reasons, we need to separate them in order to teach to our students the difference between micro and macro. Point number 2, Doctor, transference, Arabicization and nasukh, this one. When we translate, of course, especially as وهذا يختص به العرب خاصة لأنه تأخرنا جدا بالنسبة للحضارات الأخرى. كنا نقود الحضارات، كانت المصطلحات، وإلى الآن لا تزال مثلا في الطب العيون أغلب المصطلحات أصلها عربي في عدة أشياء. ونعرف أنه مثلا الطب ظل يدرس في أوروبا وخاصة في ألمانيا وفرنسا أكثر من 400 سنة ظل يدرس بالعربي الغريب، ولكن نحن غيبنا عن تاريخنا حتى ربما نعتقد أن الحضارة هذه حضارة غربية صرف، ولكن المنصفين من الغربيين يقولون أنه الحضارات هي تراكم في الحقيقة، حضارة تبقي على حضارة وحضارة أخرى تضيف وهكذا. ونحن العرب لم نكتفي بما وجدنا فأضفنا، عندنا إضافات مهمة جدا وكبيرة إلى الحضارة الإنسانية، ولكن الغرب طمسها في الحقيقة عندما احتلنا واعتبرنا نحن جاءنا ليحضرنا to civilize us. Anyway, transference الدكتور and Arabicization، لأنه عادة عندما نترجم نحن نأخذ مصطلح جديد ندخله اللغة العربية، عندما نتركه if we keep it in its foreign form في صيغته الأعجمية، مثل تلفزيون، computer, puncture, which is puncture from English. By the way, this is English. The Americans say flat. It's got a flat puncture. لكن the British they say puncture. لذلك في السعودية مثلا نجد البنشر. البنشر هو المكان الذي تذهب إليه عندما إطار من إطارات السيارة مشكلة فتروح هناك، يسموا بنشر اليمنيين، لأنه في الحقيقة تحريف لكلمة puncture. أنا لما كنت في الإمارات وأردت لأنه لابد أن تأخذ رخصة سياقة إماراتية، فتأخذ كورسات خاصة معينة، أنا كنت قلت كورسات، انظروا، دروس في الحقيقة في علامات الطريق وفي السياقة. فكان يقول لي، أتذكر أنا واحد يقول لي ريوس، المهندس يقول لي ريوس، أنا ما فهمتش في الحقيقة ريوس. لو قال له بالإنجليزية ريفرس فهمت، لكنت فهمت، ولكن هو قالها لي باللهجة الإماراتية ريوس معناها تأخر وأخر السيارة. ما فهمتش، قلت له ماذا؟ قال لي ريوس. بالإشارة فهمت أنه ريفرس إلى وراء. نحن يا دكتور عندما مثلا نقول بنشر، تو بنشر تستخدموها في الأردن، فلان بنشر صح. it's like it's a kind of calque from ليس calque في الحقيقة، it's a calque from English, but we have given it or you have given it a Jordanian meaning, which means بنشر يعني من الإعياء، من الكذا، لا يستطيع أن يمشي. Yes, this is a good image، ولكن هذا لا يعني أن كلمة بنشر هي الترجمة الصحيحة. نستخدمها في لهجاتنا في خطاباتنا العادية، ولكن عندما يتعلق الأمر بالترجمة إلى نص عربي لا يمكن أن نستخدم كلمة بنشر. في كلامنا العادي، في تواصلنا العادي، نعم أتفق معك. عندنا طلابنا، نحن نشتكي أحيانا من طلابنا، وحتى لما يكتبوا لك الطلاب على الواتساب في مجموعة أو شيء، يكتب لك بالإنجليزي مكتوب بالحروف العربية الترم الماضي بدل أن يقول الفصل الماضي. ما هو المانع أن يقول الفصل الماضي؟ ولكن الترم الماضي، الكورس اللي فات يا دكتور، الكورس. طيب ليش مش المقرر أو المادة؟ يعني في الحقيقة اللغات يا دكتور تضيع بمثل هذه الممارسات التي لا نشعر بها نحن، لأن اللغة تضيع بعد عقود من الزمن ولا تضيع فجأة. مثلا الآن يا دكتور في الواتساب أو في المسجنج، الإرساليات هذه تكتب لست أدري 70 أو أكثر من 80 حرف بالإنجليزي، هذه تعتبر رسالة واحدة، ولكن بالعربي تصل إلى 20 25 تعتبر رسالة. يعني أنت بدل أن ترسل بالعربي تخسر كثير، لأنه مثلا نأخذ في السعودية 25 هللة لكل رسالة. لو أنك 80 كلمة ترسلها تقسمها على 3 أو 4 وحدات فتخسر ريال كامل، في حين بالإنجليزي لا، هي ربع ريال، 25 هللة. وهذا مدروس يا دكتور في الحقيقة، مدروس من الغربيين. الآن نحن مثلا في تونس يستخدمون الحروف اللاتينية اللي يعتقدونهم في تونس أنها فرنسية، والإرساليات كلها بهذه الحروف. لماذا؟ لأنه يرسل على الأقل 72 أو أكثر من الحروف يعني مثلا عندنا بتونس 100 مليم، يعني 10 دينار التونسي مثلا. فهي قضية اقتصادية أحيانا. هل تظن يا دكتور أن الغرب، وأنا عفوا أني أتكلم بالعربية هنا، do you think that this is not calculated by the West؟ يعني لماذا جعلوها هكذا؟ لماذا جعلوا 80 حرف للإنجليزية في حين العربية مثلا 20 وتنتهي الإرسالية ولا بد تبدأ رسالة جديدة؟ فنحن الآن أصبح كل العرب، أكيد عندكم في الأردن نفس الشيء، في السعودية أنا ألاحظ نفس الشيء، في السعودية يكتبون بالعربي بالحروف العربية، ولكن كلمات ليس عربية. واللغة، حتى لغتنا يعني نحو الصرف حدث ولا حرج. النحو والصرف حدث ولا حرج في الحقيقة. يعني بطبيعة الحال معروف في علم اللغة أنه هناك كلمات تزول وهناك كلمات تظل موجودة وتكتسب معنى جديد. مثلا الذرة، كلمة الذرة في العربية ولا زالت تستخدم عندنا في تونس. مثلا الذرة هي النملة الصغيرة، نقول قد الذرة، معناها صغير جدا، شيء صغير جدا. وذرة من الحاجة مسحوق، مثلا ذرة من الدقيق، من السكر، ذرة من الملح، يعني شيء صغير. لكن الآن ذرة تعني أتوم بالإنجليزي. القنبلة الذرية اكتسبت معنى جديدا. أخذ مثال آخر، يعني كلمة سيارة زال معناها القديم في العربية، وخاصة استخدمت في القرآن فجاءت سيارة. سيارة في ذلك الوقت كانت تعني قافلة في العربية، لم يكونوا يعرفوا السيارة. الآن كلمة سيارة معناها القديم زال تماما واكتسبت معنى جديد اللي هي كار، سيارة. وهناك كلمات يعني قد تكتسب، قد يعني يتغير معناها تماما بشكل آخر يعني، وبالتالي أمر طبيعي. لكن نحن عندما نتحدث عن ترانسفيرنس، كمبيوتر وتلفزيون، أنا أفضل مثلا حاسوب على كمبيوتر لأنه لا يضعف اللغة العربية. بطبيعة الحال لكل رأيه، ولكن أفضل أنا ليش؟ يعني احنا لغتنا العربيه يعني غير قادره ان يعني تاتي بمفردات نستطيع ان نعبر بها عن كل شيء. في الحقيقه نستطيع ان نعبر عن كل لغه في الحقيقه، لا نقول العربيه فقط، كل لغه تستطيع ان تعبر عن اي شيء بنفسها، بحروفها، بمفرداتها. فهذا ما اقصده يعني عندما اقول transference and Arabicization، يعني التعريب وكذا. النقطه الثالثه دكتور free translation idiomatic translation. بالمناسبه دكتور idiomatic translation is another type of is another method of translation. موجود semantic translation, communicative translation, idiomatic translation, adaptation as another method. هي من انواع من طرق او طرائق الترجمه اللي هي الترجمه الاصطلاحيه اللي هي idiomatic. يعني it's not exactly free. صحيح انه the example I have given you is an idiom. That's why you called it an idiomatic translation. لكن idiomatic translation is a separate type of method which normally we use if like in
كم من الرب is idiomatic دكتور؟
absolutely دكتور absolutely
It's an
يعني
idiom.
اي absolutely دكتور، يعني it's an idiom. صح، هو صح، لكن يعني قصدي انه free translation is a يعني idiomatic is another method if like translation. For artificial intelligence which was raised by Dr. Awad, MAT and CAT يعني machine aided translation or computer aided translation، يعني هو عبارة جميلة استخدمتها دكتور جهاد، وهو أنه هي الآلة الجديدة هي عبارة عن إنسان يعني وراءها، أو هي أصبحت إنسان غير طبيعي، إنسان آخر يعني ربما تجاوزت الإنسان. قد لست أدري صراحة، لست في هذا المجال ولا أستطيع أن أفتي فيه، ولكن لا أعتقد أن يعني الذكاء الاصطناعي يستطيع أن يتفوق على الإنسان. لماذا؟ لأنه الذي صنعه هو الإنسان. لا أعتقد، لأنه لست again I say it with reservation, I'm not a specialist in the field، ولكن I don't think so. I don't think that artificial intelligence can if like dominate the humans or dominate humanity. أرجو أن أكون قد أجبت على نقاط.
Thank you, Dr. Al-Majid. Thank you. Now we have with us Dr. Shahda. He's got a question. Would you?
Thank you, Professor Abdelmajid and Dr. Awad, for your presentations. Actually, I have two comments. The first one is that those who claim that translators are actually traitors, خوانين وخائنين، ما عقبوا كلمة السوء اللي حطوها فينا. I think they forgot the role of translation in our civilization. Had it not been for translation, we would not have known about any other culture. We would not have known about any other civilization. And other civilizations also would not have known anything about our culture. There is nothing perfect in this world. Translators, like any other human being, can make mistakes, but their advantages are more than their defects, actually. So this is a comment. Whenever we see this phrase or this claim as a label against translators, we should actually add a footnote that it is not true.
Absolutely.
The second thing is that regarding one of your trios, which can be not only trios, but can be more 3 or 6 or 7, whatever they are.
Yeah.
In one of the trios, you mentioned addition and reduction and change. I think that there are other labels for that. Explicitation, for example, can account for addition, and implicitation can account for deletion or reduction, and shifts in translation, whether at any level, at the syntactic level or at the pragmatic level or the morphological level, there are shifts usually, and these shifts can be either, as you know, obligatory shifts, and it can be optional shifts. These are my two comments only, just to save time for others if they have questions. Thank you. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shahda. Thank you very much. صح، يعني نحن هكذا كانوا يسموننا الترجمان، خائن خوان. لكن بطبيعة الحال لها قصة، هي تعود إلى it comes back to the early days of translation, like when translation starts spreading, especially translating pieces of literature. As I told you earlier, the narrative poem by Dante, which is La Divina Commedia, the Divine Comedy, يعني الكوميديا الإلهية, which normally the Italians, they didn't like it. They didn't like the French translation for Dante, and they came up with this adage, this idiom, traditori. It has to do especially with literature normally. But of course, as you said, Doctor, you are absolutely right, and I personally mentioned this in a talk given in Riyadh in 1998. I remember in King Saud University. الله سبحانه وتعالى قال يعني أنه خلقناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا، وكيف سنتعارف بدون الترجمة؟ يعني الترجمة كانت وسيلة للتعارف، يعني بدون الترجمة لا نستطيع أن نتعارف، وبدون الترجمة لا نستطيع أن نتعرف على ثقافات غيرنا. والله سبحانه وتعالى كان يحثنا على أن نتعرف على الثقافات الأخرى والشعوب الأخرى، لتعارفوا. الهدف أن نتعارف. How can we get to know each other without getting to know each other's languages? You see? So therefore, absolutely, translation is necessary. Is absolutely a necessary means of human communication. Since we humans speak various languages and live in different parts of this vast world, if like, we need, of course, translation in order to communicate with each other. يعني it's a very good point, this, Dr. Shahda. For explicitation and implicitation, Doctor, may I differ from what you think is explicitation and implicitation? It's not addition. Explicitation is not addition. Implicitation is not omission, Doctor. Explicitation, as is expressed also, explicitation by Vinay and Darbani, it's أحيانا نقول شيء ونضمره. أحيانا في الترجمة لو أنك تضمره لا يتوضح المعنى، you have تظهره, you have to explicitate it. تظهر ما هو مضمر. أي صحيح, it involves addition, Doctor. لكن it is a different way of addition. If like explicitation is not exactly like addition, because يعني شيء مضمر أنت أظهرته, of course you have added, but this is a different action that we do in translation. Implicitation نفس الشيء. يعني نذكر مثلا مثال في رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لما كان مهاجر من مكة إلى المدينة، وكان مع أبو بكر الصديق رضي الله عنه، وكانت في إثره قريش كلها، ويعني وضع أحد القرشيين وضع 100 ناقة في ذلك الوقت من حمر النعم لمن يأتي بمحمد حيا أو ميتا. فاعترضهم شخص، يعني هو أبو بكر اعترضه شخص، فسأله، يعرف أبو بكر الصديق رضي الله عنه ولكن لا يعرف الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم، فقال له يعني عارفه، فقالوا من صاحبك؟ فسيدنا أبو بكر يعني لا يستطيع أن يقول له محمد، فاستخدم يعني اللي هو الدوبل انتوندر، هذه اللي هو في العربية هذا
دبلوماسي.
لا، هي التورية. أحسنت، الله يبارك فيك. نعم، التورية، استخدم التورية. فقال له هاد يهديني الطريق، هاد يهديني الطريق. يعني بطبيعة الحال في ذلك الوقت، في ذلك عند العرب، الهادي هو شخص يقفو الأثر في الصحراء، يحتاج أحيانا القفاية يسموها كذلك، يعني أنه يعني من يساعدهم على اتخاذ الوجهة الصحيحة إلى مكان معين. فقال له هاد يهديني الطريق. صحيح أنه السامع سيفهم أنه شخص متخصص في قفاية، ولكن أبو بكر الصديق رضي الله عنه أراد أن يخفي من الذي يصاحبه، فقال هاد، وهو يهدي طريق الحق، يعني طريق الإسلام. فهذه of course يعني a guide، ممكن we say a guide leading me the way. يعني it could be a perfect perhaps a translation here which keeps this implicit or this double entendre which is ambiguity in English، يعني الكلمة اللي هي أو جملة عبارة تفتح على أكثر من تأويل، مثلا في الإنجليزية نوم تشومسكي's famous sentence، أن أكيد الدكتور جهاد ممكن يتذكرها كذلك، اللي هي flying planes can be dangerous. Flying planes can be dangerous. Flying, it could be an adjective to planes. It could be a gerundive, يعني to fly planes. It depends on how you look at it and translate. Of course, there are different types of ambiguities. It could be lexical. It could be many other types of ambiguity, of course, and we don't have maybe time to go on talking about this. وبالتالي I agree with you, Doctor. You're right, but explicitation is another procedure, and implicitation is a procedure, not an action that normally we use, but action. This is in translation, whatever translation, whatever the language, whatever the language pair. Addition and change and omission and change are necessary for translation to be possible. But implicitation and explicitation are procedures. I didn't mention all the procedures. I mentioned only, I think in the third trio, I mentioned transference, naturalization or Arabicization and equivalence. But of course, there are many others, transposition, shift, etc. And explicitation, implicitation are among, if like, among the procedures known normally in translation. I hope that I have answered your points.
Thank you, Dr. Abdelmajid. Thank you very much. Do you want to ask more questions, Dr. Shahda?
Oh, that's fine. This is a long story, actually, to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a long another hour.
صح دكتور. It's a very long story indeed.
Dr. Jihad.
And I just want to say one thing. Chomsky, I was reading Chomsky the other day, and Chomsky was predicting that artificial intelligence may develop on its own. That is, there could be a point in time where the creator, that is the human being, would not be able to control his creation. So could be.
والله ممكن دكتور يعني قلت لك يعني maybe the people who can answer this perhaps.
Well, I can't answer. You see, I'm just like you, but I'm just reporting.
Yeah, I agree with you, Doctor. Yeah. يعني maybe
of ours that is Chomsky was making this prediction.
Yeah, well, Chomsky يعني لكن how can normally well, as I understand it simply myself, a machine is something that is normally, whether it is mechanical, it is made by man, whether it is electronic, it is programmed by man. So how can it, as a machine, how can it work by itself? How can it think? I don't know. Personally, as a I'm talking from as a layman. I'm not like an electronician. I cannot really say. I mean, I cannot really know how this happened. But as a lay human, I see that a machine cannot.
Dr. Abdelmajid, the other day, there was a missile in this war between Russia and Ukraine. The missile, yes, developed it on its own, grew on its own, and hit back its base.
Intelligent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, inshallah, let's hope that artificial intelligence cannot develop by itself. Let's hope, because if this takes place, we are in trouble. Humanity is in trouble.
Yes.
Okay, guys, any more questions, or we can wrap up the today's lecture? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Abdelmajid, for this very enriching lecture. I really benefit myself from it a lot. Now I'll leave the floor to Dr. Jihad to conclude the meeting.
Thank you very much, Professor Awad. Thank you very much, Professor Abdelmajid. And I also leave it to my colleague, Dina Salman, to bring this session to a close. Dina, the floor is yours. Where's Dina?
Muted. Microphone.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdelmajid, for this rich and insightful presentation. Dr. Awad, thank you for moderating and aiding with the presentation. We next month will be meeting again. Our session will be focused on literature, and our speaker is Dr. Noor Kilani. She is going to be discussing, and I have a preliminary title here, Marketing Arab Anglophone Female Literature. So this will be held on August 5th. As for this session, in about a day or two, it'll be available on YouTube. I'd like to thank once again our speaker and our moderator and all of the attendees today. And we hope to see you again on August 5th next month. Dr. Jihad.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you very much, Professor Abdelmajid. It was really a very interesting presentation.
Thank you very much.
Shahdi and I are also translators. Yes. So we are part of this gang. Yes. And there are also other colleagues. I can see also Professor Aziz Thabit up there. Yes. We exchanged ideas and views. We learned. Yes. Thank you very much. It was really interesting. It brought up new ideas, opened new venues for us to go through. Thank you, Professor Awad, also for really suggesting Professor Abdelmajid to be our guest speaker. And I'd like to thank Dina again, all members of the academic forum, and would also like to thank all colleagues who were with us, whether they contributed directly or indirectly to this presentation, but they are part of our assets, and without them, we can't really fly high. Thank you very much. We call it a day, and we look forward to our next meeting in August. You are all welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Jihad. Thank you very much. I thank everybody. I thank Epitau. I thank Dr. Awad for moderating my talk. I thank Dr. Dina for preparing for this talk, and I thank all our colleagues, all the attendees. And we hope we meet again, inshallah, with more talks through this Epitau forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.